Hey, and welcome back to Slick Willy Fly. So today we're gonna do a very simple EP shrimp. So I have one model here, all pink. I have another one in the vise that I've got a little two-tone variation here. Super simple, super easy tie, super inexpensive, and to be honest with you, this is a great little fly for inshore saltwater species. I've never tried this fishing sea trout in Scandinavia, but I think when I start fishing again in 2024, this is definitely gonna get a try. So let's go ahead and tie one up. So I'm gonna put a size 2 saltwater hook in because really my original intention is South Florida, but I'm definitely gonna try this in Scandinavia. And I think that this particular fly, I'm gonna continue with the two-tone variant. I can make it all pink. I mean, really, this material's come in any colors. I'm using a little bit of Marabou. I'm using a little bit of deer hair. And then I'm using an EP brush. I have EP, it's shrimp. It's called EP Shrimp Dub. I have it in pink, I have it in white, I have it in some tan colors. I mean, you know, is it the cheapest material that I buy? No, it's not the cheapest material I buy. But I think that when you see how many flies you get out of the package, it's not really a deal breaker either. I don't tie enough with EP brush that I'm gonna get into making my own brushes at this point. So I'm gonna use regular B chain eyes because I'm thinking it's not gonna be super deep water, and I don't want it to be sinking so fast. So I'm gonna use medium B chain. And like every time when I use B chain, I use my wire cutters so I don't damage my scissors. Then I always trim that little piece that comes out the end. I go ahead and I trim that off as well. Makes the bead chain look a little cleaner. As far as placement of the bead chain, I'm just trying to give myself room to put a whip finish in at the end of this fly. So I'm gonna do, I don't know, maybe 10 wraps in each direction, just basic X wraps. Making sure I like where it's sitting. Once I like where it's sitting, like always, give it a little touch of super glue. Plenty. A few more X wraps. I don't count my X wraps, I'm sorry. I'm just not that specific. Now I'm doing some figure eights. And what figure eights do is it draws your X wraps in really tight. All right, so now I need to make a decision. Do I want to go full on pink? I have this sand colored Marabou. Obviously I have my pink. You know what? We're gonna do pink again. The pink just looks so good. So when I make this kind of fly, I try to pull out my worst strung Marabou feathers. You know, if you're a fan at all of my channel, if you've seen my videos, you know how much I love Marabou, and I tie a lot of flies using Marabou, and I save my better Marabou feathers for those flies. Because what I'm using here is just a tiny bit of Marabou. I'm gonna basically use about 1/4 of an inch, probably less than a centimeter for my metric friends. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this on a little long, and then I'm gonna go ahead and pull it to the length that I want it. So a couple of soft turns, a couple of soft wraps here, not pulling anything tight. definitely too long. And that's about the length that I'm looking for. So now I can pull this tight. For thread, I'm using a 100 denier. And I'm using red because I don't have 100 denier pink. And it's pretty close. Plus I like red. Can trim off all of this tag end. Remember, you never cut on the same side as the thread bobbin, so you don't risk cutting your bobbin off. Perfect. All that's gonna clean up. I'm not worried about any of that little fuzzy stuff. So now I'm gonna take a tiny little bit of brown deer hair, and I just think that it gives it a little bit of color, a little bit more texture. It's not really serving any other purpose, and you don't need a lot. I'm going to take away all these little short hairs. Don't need any of the shorts. And I really don't need any of the super longs either. Kind of get an idea on the length, and then I'm going to go ahead and trim this up. Just makes my life easier when I put it on the hook. So again, I'm going to do 2 wraps. And this time I'm going to distribute around the hook. Making sure that it's nicely distributed all the way around. Now I can pull it tight and lock it in. And that just gives it, I don't know, it's a little bit of color, I guess. I don't know, I like the way it looks. You probably don't need to do the deer hair step, but I just think it looks cool. And the truth is that when I go into my fly boxes, I always take the flies that I think look good. You know, I have a really, really great buddy in Miami, a good friend of mine. Been friends for many, many, many years. We fish together a lot. And he's in the fishing industry. I am not. And it's not fly fishing that he's in. He's in saltwater tackle. But I'll never forget, many years ago, he said to me, we were talking about some new lure or something. I can't even remember what the hell we were talking about. But he said to me that lures or plugs or jigs or anything, you have to catch the fisherman before it could catch a fish. There's a lot of truth in that statement. If it doesn't look good to you, it'll never leave your fly box. Okay. Alright, so the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to take some easy shrimp eyes. Or I might take my own, I'm not sure. I have my own, which are a little longer. But I'm going to use the easy shrimp eyes. Save my eyes for bigger flies. So here I have easy shrimp eyes, and these are on this like fluorescent glow in the dark kind of red color, which I think look really cool. So remember, because of the bead chain, should right hook up. So keep that in mind when you put on your shrimp eyes. And what I do is I put them on a little bit off center to begin, a little bit towards me. And then as I start pulling tight, it lines up right where I want it. Super simple, just like that. Careful you don't grab the hook with your thread. All right, so now we're gonna put on some rubber legs. I like to have a little bit of color variation. So in this case, I'm gonna use this little pumpkin. It's called pumpkin flake, I think it's called. I don't remember. It's called gold pumpkin, silly legs. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and put a couple of these on. And super simple to apply. I just put them on the thread, make sure they're about even in length, and then I just take them to the top of the hook and lock them in. First I lock in one side, and then I make sure to lock in the opposite side. Just like that. And the next step is going to be a little bit of crystal flash. And in this case, you know what? I'm going to use pink crystal flash. One strand is plenty. You can use silver. You can use any color you like. But I'm going to use pink. You know, the EP brush, this shrimp dub, has some really cool built-in flash. So again, I just fold it in half, making sure it's about the same length. Repeat the process. I put it on the thread, making sure that it's about even. Once I'm happy, take it to the hook and I lock it in. And once, ooh, I was careful not to do that. Cut the hook point there. This is why you go with 100 denier. And now I'm just carefully distributing the crystal flash onto both sides of the hook. Just like that. Super simple. So this fly is practically finished being tied. I can rotate the vise, making my life a little easier. I can open this loop now if I want. I could open it later, it doesn't really matter. The silly legs I'm going to trim. I don't want the silly legs quite as long as the crystal flash, but we'll get there. So now I'm going to take this shrimp dub EP brush, which I've been using, and I've already tied 2 flies with this piece. So you see, you get a lot out of these packages. And I expose a little bit of the wire, and I'm going to just go ahead, I'm going to trim it. Actually, it's a little long. Again, if you're going to trim the wire, use your wire cutter. Now I'm going to go ahead and tie it in. And now I'm going to bring my thread forward and out of the way. And I'm not really going to use my rotary function because when you have the silly legs and the crystal flash, it just becomes a mess. It's not so simple. But I do draw all the fibers forward, and now I'm going to just start doing open wraps. Does not have to be tight wraps. In fact, I highly recommend you do not do tight wraps. So I'm doing kind of open wraps, making sure that I do draw all the fibers towards the hook point on every single wrap. Working my way towards the dumbbell eyes. You know, this is a fly that, you know, little brackish water, definitely shallow. It's not a deep water fly. but a little brackish water, not really sure what's going on, but you think it looks fishy. Now, this is a great little search and destroy fly. When I'm in Florida in February, this fly is definitely going to see some action. But I'm really interested. I really am interested in trying this fly in Sweden for sea trout. You know, I'm going to tie a fly that I learned after moving to Sweden. It's called a mulkis. I might be saying that wrong. And it's a shrimp pattern. And it's super simple. And I hadn't really thought about it, but I'm going to tie a couple up to bring to Florida and try it in Florida. It's a pretty simple little shrimp pattern, that mulkis. I'll make a video. I'm going to make a video here soon before I go to Florida. So now all I've done is I'm capturing the dubbing brush, this EP brush. A couple of good turns. I'm going to go behind it, making sure that it's just really locked in. And now remember, don't cut on the same sides as your thread. And use your wire cutters. And I still have, I can make another fly. Easily make another fly with what's remaining there. So I know a lot of people think that buying dubbing brush tends to get expensive. I don't know. I think that for what you get, it's a good deal. Now remember, you have a little metal tag there. So I recommend that you do your best to cover that with your thread, so you don't risk, you know, scratching yourself or having anything happen to a leader. And then once you feel good that you've covered that little metal tag, just come up here and get a whip finish in. Now, one thing that I like to do, but is not necessary, is I'm going to take a little UV resin to this knot. Just because I like to make my flies a little bit more bulletproof. The last thing that I recommend you do is you tease out these fibers that possibly got trapped. And then I trim them a little bit. Even though that this is called, it is actually called shrimp dub, I think they're a little long for this particular fly. And I'll show you how I trim them here in a second. First thing I'm going to do is trim my silly legs. So I have my crystal flash as a guide, and I definitely don't want them as long as my crystal flash. I'm going to do them together, just hold them in the same hand, and I'm going to give them a little trim. And I know that if I still don't like the length, I can trim them again. So, which I might, we'll see. Now I'm going to focus on digging out these fibers and getting that trimmed up. So how do I trim this shrimp dub? EP dub. The most important thing is you got to make sure that your crystal flash and your silly legs are out of the way. And then I just kind of draw them out, just like this, just like if I was doing EP fibers. And then I take my scissors, I use my thumb as a guide. I really don't want to make them too short. I can always cut more, but you can't put it back. The big thing though is make sure that all your crystal flash and everything else is out of the way. And then I like to use a little bit of a longer scissor so I can do it in one stroke. And I come in and I just kind of trim on a little bit of a diagonal. Just like that. And then you do the same thing on the opposite side, making sure first to move everything out of the way. And then you just come in here and you trim on a little bit of a diagonal. Just like that. Cut a little bit more on the one side than the other, so I'm going to have to trim this a little more. Okay, I think I'm starting to get close now. And then the last thing I like to do before I say it's done, a couple of wild hairs here, is I actually like to take a dubbing brush and tease out a little bit more of the trapped fibers. Remember when you're cutting to take your time, because you cannot put fibers back once you trim them off. But I'm starting to get pretty close to what I like here. And really got to be careful with the rubber legs and the crystal flash, but as you can see here, it's starting to get shrimpy. And of course, this fly is going to swim, hook up, just like this. And you can see here the length of the legs. Actually, I like. You can see the length of the crystal flash. I think looks pretty good. I think the fly looks great. So super easy to tie. Sparse. It'll sink good. It'll swim good. You don't really need much more. You could put a weed guard on this if you like. Super simple to put a weed guard on at this point. You can do anything you like. The only thing I'm gonna do is put a little bit of UV resin on. Putting it back in the vise. I'm gonna get my UV resin out. This will take all of a second to do. I think that this fly is obviously meets all my criteria as far as simple to tie, inexpensive materials. I mean, I have a little bit of Marabou, a little bit of crystal flash, rubber legs. Super simple, you know, bead chain eyes. Nothing fancy here, nothing expensive. I'm just gonna rotate this so that resin coats nice. And I think it looks great. I'm just gonna zap it. I think the little red thread looks great with this fly. It's a cool fly. Super happy with this fly. So I hope you like it. It's EP Shrimp. It's a super simple tie. Very beginner level tie. And I promise that if you're if you're anywhere where shrimp is on the menu, this will get bit. If you're anywhere where the water's maybe the water's a little tannic and you need a little bit more dark colors, this will get bit. Super simple fly. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. And good luck with the EP Shrimp. Good luck catching. See you on the next video.